pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our June 26th meeting. Please note the council's in full attendance. We do have our formal agenda, but we really only just have one thing on it, which is to complete our budget meetings. But I do want to go through the normal routine real quick. If there's any items from council, and don't forget to turn off your phones. So,
That sounds like a depth charger over there.
is there any items anybody want to bring up? Just, I want to repeat again, I think we said it last night, we are spraying for mosquitoes. We started on Monday, and then this morning and tomorrow morning. I don't know about you guys, but I get a lot of requests for, can you just go do this area again? And we can't, no. We have a very regimented map of how that's done, and we really can't deviate. That would be a true statement. So I hope people know we're doing our best for that. Yes, ma'am.
I know a lot of people watch this on TV, and I think you said last night that there would not be a meeting on July 3rd, or maybe you'd want to say that so the people that are
Yes.
watching and are wondering what happened to the tape.
The city manager, we do not have any agenda items.
That's correct.
So at this point in time today, unless y'all just want to all come up here and meet, and I don't think you do, we will not have a July 3rd meeting. So, which is nice since it's a holiday weekend for
Took
everybody.
care of the 3 agenda items last night.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. Scott. Anything else from council? Okay, seeing none, the next item is citizens' communications. If anyone would like to speak, just come up to the mic, let us know your name for the record, and keep your comments under 5 minutes. Would anyone like to speak to us now? Okay. Seeing no one get up, we'll close citizens' communication and move straight down to our work session.
Yes, sir. So the first presenter tonight is Daryl Leasack with Environmental.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Get this right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here to talk about the environmental services budget for 2018-2019. There we go. So just to recap on what services we provide. We have the garbage, the curbside, yard waste, tree limb, large item, and household hazardous waste pickup. We have air quality research and education. We are still doing some of that. It finishes up this month. We will still be doing air quality education as part of our ongoing education, which also includes recycling education, litter abatement, and litter education as well as stormwater education. And then we also help out with weedy lot mowing, litter, and building demo. So this is kind of interesting. We look every year at the tonnage over the last several years, and as you can see, looking at 2017, 2018, and this is May 1st of 2017 through April 30th of 2018, we had increases in household garbage tonnage, yard waste, tree limb tonnage, and curbside recycling tonnage to the tune of about 2,320 extra tons. That can all be attributed to the hurricane. That is what our guys, the city employees, picked up. That does not take into account the 400,000+ cubic yards of brush and 50,000 cubic yards of debris that was picked up by the contractor. We had 52 tons of household hazardous waste that was diverted from the landfill, and we had a little bit of a drop in our residential house count. I would just venture to let council know that changes from month to month. We have people move in, we have people move out. Each month that can go up or down a little bit.
Daryl,
Yes, sir.
in general, the population still increases, yet our number of accounts decreased across the board there.
Well, and remember, this is only water accounts that pay garbage and sewer. So while the population may increase with apartment complexes, different things like that, it's not going to affect my garbage rates.
Gotcha.
The apartment complex is one account.
That I'm not sure.
We don't
But
pick
they
up
have
garbage.
commercial
Yeah, we don't pick
pickup.
up garbage there.
So
I was thinking those were water accounts. I thought I heard you say those are.
they're not paying garbage, brush, bulky pickup. They're paying commercial services through Waste Management.
No, I understand that. Never mind.
So looking at our budget for 2018-19, we have a increase in personnel of about 27,000. We have an increase of about 32,000 maintenance and operations. Our capital went up about $3,400. Total reoccurring expenses are about $64,000. One-time expenses dropped $83,126, and our total proposed budget went from $5,644,000 to $5,625,000, a decrease of about $19,000. So going into some of the budget variances, Cheryl talked last night about the increase in pay across the board and market adjustment. We also had a decrease in workers' comp to that tune of $27,947. Maintenance and operation, we had increase in fuel, as did the fire department. And then in capital, the $3,400 is to replace a desktop computer. So that makes up the $64,027. So going into one-time expenses. As we're all aware, we're working on our landfill permit. Last year, current year, we have budgeted $550,000. Next year, we're dropping that to $253,000. We are on schedule. We finished the phase one. We're now working on phase two. So we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule. So that's a savings of $296,500. We have carts which are flat year over year. Last year, or this current year, we purchased 2 automated side load trucks. Next year, we're looking at 1 automated side load truck and 1 brush truck. However, that's still a savings of $137,120. GPS equipment, 2 of those will go on the new trucks. That's three GPSs. One will be to replace any deficient ones that we have during the year. Consulting. So the waste management contract will be up in 2021. As a city, we would like to step back, take a look at that, and see if commercial is something we don't want to take back in under the folds of the city. We believe it could be definitely something that could help us in offsetting some costs and other funds. And we think we may be able to do as good a job, if not a better job, than what Waste Management does. So we'd like the opportunity to hire someone to come in, work with myself and Gilbert to look at taking over that contract. That's an increase of about $42,000. We're replacing a copier for $4,000. We have a transfer to the health fund, which Gilbert talked about last night, of $333,333. We do not have the stipend plan next year, so that's a savings of $28,839. So our total savings, when you look at our one-time expenses, is $83,126.
Daryl,
Yes, sir.
so, of course, you piqued my interest in saying you're gonna look at the commercial and consider, seeing if it's viable or a good thing for us to do that. In Texas, are y'all familiar with how many communities approximately do that internally? Is it a common thing? Is it?
There are some that do, mostly smaller cities still, but we think it's worth looking at.
I think the advantage we have is this gentleman standing right here with all of his experience running commercial waste, for 20 years with Waste Management. So, I mean, it's kind of similar to when we evaluated taking back over the sewer treatment plant, at the time. We had the right staff that could do that, and,
Well, and I don't mean to demean it, but it's a commodity service. It's very straightforward. It's, the trucks, it's the containers, the routes, there's not a lot of complication to it.
No, sir,
It's
there's really
interesting
not.
idea.
And we
Yeah.
have a routing software already. We have a GPS system already. We have things in place that could make this viable for the city to operate.
Did we ever do it before? I don't remember how, it seems like,
I don't know.
I've been in this industry since 91, and the city was not doing it in 91. It was Countywide Waste, Garbage Gobbler, and one other company,
yeah,
which all turned into
Yeah.
Waste Management in 93.
I remember Garbage Gobbler.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
So on to the good news that I know Miss Elise waits for every year. But I do have to give some credit to the guys that pick up the garbage. Our productivity over the last 5 years has really increased, gotten better, which does play into us not having to do rate increases this year. So our rates will still be the same as they are and the same as they have been for about the last 10 years.
Great.
So I want to talk to you about a new program. This is a new program that's really not going to cost the city any money, but the city manager talked to me about a year ago. You know, we've been in here, I've been in here with Waste Management. We've talked about a litter problem in town, and we have one. And so the environmental department's going to take that on this year. I've already been out raising funds. I've got a couple $1,000s that I've gotten donated already to work through this. We've got some partners built up, but we're looking at a program called Take Pride Victoria. We actually have a group of people that we've been meeting with that came up with that name. What we're going to do is it's an anti-litter education program. We are working with other people, and there may be some cleanups. But our main goal here is to educate the public on the problem that we have and educate them on how to fix it going forward. You know, we're working with University of Houston, Victoria, got a grant from NOAA. We're working with them. They're cleaning up the section in front of the mall and the drainage ditch there. And their goal is to check water quality, but not only water quality, they're coming back and doing root cause on where the litter comes from that they find in that ditch. And our department is teaming up with them to work with that, as well as Public Works is helped out as well, and we're getting information back to Public Works on that water purification and what's contained in that water. We're working on PSAs with the police department currently. We've created and are ready to put out a letter to all commercial customers in town, not only about their dumpsters and their dumpster lids, but also about picking up litter in their parking lots, their driveways, their sidewalks, the curb in front of their businesses. I've been in meetings with the county, TxDOT, the police department, and the sheriff's department. And if you go out to the landfill, you will notice more patrols in that area looking for trucks or vehicles that are losing litter on the road. It's a problem that we've had. We've recognized it, and now we're actually enforcing it. And then also, we're looking at adopting a section of highway from Navarro to the Cuero Highway under the city, under the Adopt a Highway program, in which case we would have quarterly cleanups out there, and it would be a volunteer type basis. So is there any questions on that new program?
At the landfill, I understand you have a sign, and if you show up with a trailer or truck that's not covered, they'll charge you a fee.
$25, and at the compost facility, both places.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Daryl, are we talking also about maybe the neighborhoods, kind of doing the neighborhoods in this project? Like a neighborhood watch and this, taking it neighborhood by neighborhood, or are you doing it citywide?
This is going to be citywide. We have not gotten into looking at neighborhoods yet. We're working mostly through the commercial. I would imagine that at some point we would start looking at that. You know, some of the conferences I've gone to, we've talked about beautification awards, we've talked about neighborhood beautification awards, different things. But just getting this off the ground, we're kind of stick to what we can control the best at first, and then we'll spread out after that. I just don't want to get too big too fast,
Okay.
where I can't control it.
Yeah, I know, Ms. Solis, you've talked to me about trying to get back some of the neighborhood cleanup, especially areas that had a lot of Harvey damage
Right,
and
right.
all. And we've talked about that internally on how to manage that. So that concept is still on our radar. It's just we haven't fleshed
Okay.
it all out yet.
Okay. Thank you.
And last, but certainly not least, we need to talk about recycling a little bit. We came back with the rate increase about a year ago, and we went to $2.92. We met with Waste Management. We're not looking at another rate increase. Okay, what we are looking at is a problem, and the problem currently is the China Blue Sky program. China has. They control the market. They're 60% of the recycle market that leaves the United States goes to China. On May 5th, China closed their ports to U.S. imports of recycling. They opened it back up June 6th.
Oh.
So,
Okay, I thought it was June they closed them, okay. It's May.
no, ma'am, May. May 5th to June 6th. They reopened June 6th. However, their new standard went from 5% contamination to 0.05% contamination, 0.5% contamination. There is not a recycled MRF in the United States that can meet that criteria. So there is a big rush, though. Large companies, Republic Waste Management, TDS, those companies are working hard to try and get closer to that. How long that will take, because it's not people sorting this, it's machines. So you've got to create the machine to be able to get down to that 0.5%. And so it's stymied the market, to put it plainly. The market rates have dropped. The market futures have dropped. What you used to get $160 a ton for, now you're paying somebody to get rid of. It's also gotten to the point to where now virgin products are even easier and cheaper to make than recycled products. And so it's something I wanted to bring up because at some point in the future, it may be this year, it may be 2 years down the road. I know Mr. Halpaska brought it up when we talked about recycling last year. At some point, it's going to take care of itself. I'm going to keep it going as long as I can, but I want it on everybody's radar that we may be back to sorting at some point. We may have to look at ending our program at some point, or we may have to look at increasing the cost of our program at some point. Currently, we're doing okay. We set up that we would haul recycling and we would get at least $40 a ton back out of that $85 a ton, and we've beat that. We have problems from time to time. Right now, our contamination's up around 30%, but I've sent Charmel emails and Gilbert and others that we've been as low as 15, 16%. That's great. Sometimes we get off and you'll see us on the news and everything, getting people to try and get them back in line, because that does cost us money when we're that high. But we've had to make that decision. If something comes in there and it's 45% contamination, I'm hauling it to the landfill. And we'll keep doing that because that's the only way we can keep this program alive. But it's important that you understand that this is going to come back up at some point. And so I want it to be on everybody's mind that we're going to have some decisions we're going to have to make going forward.
What if the market goes away completely?
I don't know that you'll ever see the market go away completely. I think what you'll see is currently plastics 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which includes styrofoam, you can't get rid of anymore. You have to pay people to take it. 1 and 2 still is a viable market, but those other plastics are not. China has banned certain types of paper completely. So your magazines and stuff, what they want is this. They want good, clean office paper. If you're trying to send them magazines and stuff mixed in, they're going to turn it away. And so I don't know that you'll ever see the market go away completely. I think what you're going to see is we're going to get back to we're only going to accept these things. Just like I had to make that decision a couple years ago with glass. Yes, ma'am.
When you're talking about contamination, are you talking about the recycling having things like the plastics 3, 4, 5 that are not accepted, or are you talking about the cans are not washed out?
Both, as well as people still throwing away glass in their recycle container, which is considered contamination. For every ton of glass that I send up there, I'm paying about $35. to get rid of it. So that also, we're still getting a water hose from time to time, not as bad as it was. Food waste. We're still getting a lot of food waste. And you know, we've had this discussion there. We're sending out letters. We're going by and visiting people when we see that there's contamination. You have some that care and some that don't.
Daryl,
Yes, sir.
our recycle rate, if I remember, at 292, is really subsidized by the commercial waste contract with Waste Management.
If we did not have that commercial waste contract, yes, sir, it would probably be higher. If we went out to bid just for curbside recycling, we would not have that rate.
So when the city's looking at doing commercial waste, that means the subsidy will go away for,
It could very
Recycling.
possibly.
okay.
It would be bid out, but Mr. Baldwin, I would not venture to say what this recycling program is going to look like in 2021.
Yep.
You just go to drop-off sites like we used to have.
And you know, if we do a drop-off site, we can control the contamination. So we also can control what's brought in, so we can control what we're selling. Will we still get money back? Not enough to pay for the site. But you may be able to have a cheaper rate for everybody and still have a viable way to recycle.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm glad you're warning us.
Well, and I'm warning the public because honestly, if we can't get this contamination thing under control, there's not a whole lot I can do to save it. And so it's up to every individual in the city who wants to recycle to do it right. Wash it out. Put the proper things in there. Don't mix in trash. You know, keep your lids closed so that rain's not getting in there. You know, if I get one bad cart dumped in the middle of 15 carts and it's got water in it, I just ruined those other 15 carts that I picked up.
Like wet cardboard.
Wet cardboard, or just not keeping your lid closed and water, just dumping water on whatever else is in there.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's while I'm doing what I can, a lot of it's up to the people who are actually doing the recycling or putting those carts out to make sure that the right thing's in there when we pick it up.
A program that was initially meant to make us all feel good and save the environment is doing neither.
Currently, we're doing what we can to sustain the program and help the environment.
Now, Tom, it still makes some people feel good.
I think
Just saying.
it still makes a lot of people feel good.
But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's at a cost. So,
But it's like anything else, it has to be done right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's education, because if you go back to your slide about the amount of recycling and the tons and so forth, it's very steady and it's increased.
It has increased, although I will tell you that we're down now about 55% from 70% participation. Now, some of that is driven by my department and calling people and saying, we cannot continue to pick up your cart because every week it's got contamination in it.
Really, yeah.
And so last, as we look at future items, we're going to continue to monitor the carts on the street. I will tell you, we've gotten a lot of life out of these carts. You know, I talked to the city manager, Ms. Garrett, 5 years ago and said we need to start putting in extra money because we're going to start replacing carts. We're 10 years into this program. We've probably replaced less than 5%. That's really good. And credit goes to the drivers for doing that as well, because we're not slamming them down on the street and different things. I mean, we lose some to fires and different things, people putting hot charcoal in there, or some of them get run over. But really, I would have thought we would be probably in the 30 to 40% range by now, and we haven't been. So that's a good thing. Again, the commercial services, we want to look at that. See, is that viable for us? We'd also have 28.2 acres of landfill that we still need to close in 2025. And then we're going to continue with our landfill project. Like I said, we're on phase 2. We're ahead of schedule. We're moving along. And hopefully within 18 months to 24 months, we will have that other 200-plus acres of landfill space to use. And I'll take any questions anybody has. Thank you.
Good job, Daryl.
Thank you, Daryl.
So the final presentation tonight is Public Works, and Donald's going to talk about that. You know, when we get to the water wastewater rates, that was something we'd asked that they'll give us some feedback on, that rate increase, and any CIP projects that you might have.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. Excited to be up in front of y'all talking about our budget proposal for 2019. You know, this is a lot of work by a lot of staff members to put all this together, so I think we've got a pretty good budget for you. Before we get into it, give you a little bit of stats. As I always do, Public Works staff responds to about 12,400 work orders every year, and these things include anything from street failures, pothole repairs, all the way to water line, sewer line, and all the list of items that you see up there. One thing that's not reflected in here is that the utility billing office staff, which has 3 field service guys, responds to an additional 22 to 23,000 work orders every year. So those aren't reflected in that number up there. So they do a lot of work over there as well. Public Works is divided into 2 funding divisions. General fund covers the engineering, streets, and traffic control. The water wastewater fund is water production, wastewater treatment, water distribution, wastewater collection, utility billing, industrial pretreatment, stormwater, and environmental. And at any time, if you have any questions, just stop me. As we move into the general fund items, divisions, engineering has 8 full-time employees, and they're responsible for the design, management, and oversight of the city's CIP projects. 2019 budget is proposed to be $738,787, which is a little over $12,000 less than the previous year's budget. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on these unless there's something specific that you want, so just let me know.
I was just going to say, you should have gone first and set the standard.
Well, I prefer to say that Sharmell was saving the best for last. So,
Okay, keep moving.
Yeah, keep on moving. So, Streets and Drainage has 27 full-time employees, and they're responsible for just under 325 miles of roadways and a little over 452 miles of storm sewer. Their budget is proposed to be $6 million, a little over $6.2 million, which is $296,000 less than the previous year's budget. They do have quite a bit of one-time expenses, a little over $1.5 million, and those items are large items. A ProPatch truck, which is actually replacing we have a small dump truck that pulls a ProPatch trailer. That trailer is cumbersome to use. It's been down quite a bit, as has that small dump truck. So we're proposing to replace that with another full-size ProPatch truck, which is, you know, a paving unit mounted on the back of a chassis. So we'll think it'll be a lot more efficient. $164,000. We have an old water truck that has a very, very old water system on it that probably leaks more water than it holds. So we haven't been using that a whole lot, but because of that, but we do need it. And so we're recommending keeping the truck and just replacing the water system on it, about $25,000. We have a wheel loader that's part of the 5-year lease replacement agreement, and that one's is due $181,000. And of course, we have the capital items that we've talked about in our CIP when I came before you back in April. We have some one-time money in our seal coat project, $200,000, and then about $1 million in our residential street improvement project.
Donald, can you back up a slide?
Sure.
I just want to make an observation as city manager, and maybe to Gilbert too. It's one more slide. I always like the percent of budget, and it's not in everybody's presentation, but, you know, for example, your personnel here is 23%, whereas your previous slide, your personnel for the engineering is 85%. I just like that metric, and I think PD and fire had that. I don't know if anybody else did. little uniformity from
Sure.
I don't want to stymie the way y'all put your presentations together, but I find that
Oh,
an
no, we can-
interesting metric.
That's easy to add, thank you.
And
Yeah.
so going forward, because it's really telling when you go ahead and go forward again. Yeah, you know, how much goes into M&O, and obviously on this one, it makes sense. So, thank you.
Okay, so, and here's a slide that y'all saw during the CIP presentation, details the Seal Coat project, which is confined kind of to the North Crest subdivision, $2.2 million. And then the residential street project is in North Heights Phase 5. If you remember, we're working on those, replacing those utilities right now in that same area. That should be done very shortly. And then once that's done, we'll move into 2019 and rebuild the road on top of them. And here's the North Crest. It's kind of bound by the Ball Airport, Millette, Glasgow, and kind of all the way down to Navarro, all the residential area in between those streets. And that street rating over there averages a 90. So it's prime for a seal coat.
You know how many miles that is? Those streets are long.
I do not, I'm sorry. I do not. It is quite a bit. I can get that information. and
Nah,
email it
don't worry
back to
about
you.
it. Just guess, I don't know, 7, 8 miles total?
I
Jeff,
think-
what do you think?
Yeah, at
Probably
least,
so,
at
yeah.
least,
Yeah,
maybe more.
I was gonna go for 10.
yeah, maybe so.
I was thinking I didn't want to jog up and down them.
I don't even like to drive that far. And then here's the residential street project. Again, you know, that street rating for this project is a 67. You know, now that we've gone in and dug all these utilities up, it's probably lower than a 67. So I know those people will be looking forward to getting that street redone next year. Moving to traffic control, 9 full-time employees. A lot of work here, 88 signalized intersections, 61 school zone flashers, 14,000 street signs, and 363 miles of pavement marking and striping. Proposed budget is $2.2 million, which is an increase of $380,000 over last year's budget, or the current year's budget. The majority of that, or actually all of that, is one-time expenses. Those one-time expenses include a replacement bucket truck, $116,000. The last 3 signal cabinets downtown, which are all on Bridge Street. It's Constitution, Forest, and Goodwin. The signal cabinets we have there right now do not allow those lights to be monitored and adjusted by our traffic monitoring system. So putting these new cabinets in will allow us to tie all that system together. All the ones on Main have already been done. So, you know, anytime there's an outage or a problem with those last 3 signals, we have to go out there and physically do something with them. So that'll allow us to get that project completed. And then, of course, the striping program. We have not done a striping program since 15-16, and we're looking to bring that back. If y'all have driven out there, you've seen the striping starting to look pretty shabby in some areas. So this $250,000 will probably get us about 1/3 of the city done, mostly arterials and collectors.
We did a third before,
Yeah, yes, sir. We did 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, and
but we only got the first third done.
No, I think we did all of them. Ken, we did all 3.
Did we?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Ideally, you have this money recurring every year to do some kind of striping, and because of the budget, you know, we had to back off from that, and we've got it in this year as a one-time expense, but eventually, we hope to have revenues when we get it back up. We need to be doing it annually.
Yeah, I drive down the road and see there's some areas it's still fine. There's some areas that needs a lot of work, a lot of attention.
I'll give kudos to your department. I've called you before around schools, and you guys have come out and done some selective striping, so I appreciate y'all.
The short stuff, you know, that
Yeah.
stop bars and stuff and things like that we can do. It's those long lines that we're just not set up to do, so.
I have a question, it's just a curious
ma'am.
question. I think one's coming into town on, okay, what street was it? There was a school. I think it's Dudley, okay?
Okay.
Come in on Odom. Where you have the crossing for the school, there's a big old thick stripe on there that's not in all the school zones. Is there a reason that some school zones have that little bit wider stripe that you can see real good at night? And not that
Is
you're
it-
gonna cross the street at night as a school kid, but it's just different, and I wondered why.
Is that one at an intersection?
No, it's one of the school crossings.
In the middle of the block?
Yeah, uh-huh.
You know, the only thing I can think of is that that's a stop bar, and maybe it's just we don't have them at the other, I'll have to look at
Like
it.
it was wider and it drew my attention to the street where before I would never have looked at and seen that there was a crossing right there. And it just seemed like, okay, that's an attention getter.
Okay.
And they might stop some people from going so fast.
I'll have to go take a look at it. It's at Dudley?
Uh-huh,
Okay.
but
It'll be
it's
that
on
lay-down
Odom, I
ribbon?
think.
I'm sorry?
That lay-down ribbon that you use the heat to lay down with?
It could be. You know, we may, I just need to look at it.
It may not be painted. There's a ribbon, and they lay it down with heat. And maybe that's what that is, I don't know.
But it just seemed like it was a good eye-opener to where you're driving pretty fast, because it's a big thoroughfare, you know, and you slow down because you see this ribbon or, you know, stripe on the ground. I was
Actually,
just wondering
a
why.
little thicker
It's not a
too than
thin one,
painted.
it's a pretty thick one, so you could see it.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I
I'll have
thought
to
it-
take a look at it.
Yeah,
Kind of like some of the crosswalks
Yes.
on Navarro or on Rio Grande.
something like that, but it was very visible, and I thought, this is a good idea, you know, but I don't know if that's something that we practice or was just something that was there for a purpose.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'll look at it and get back to you.
Okay.
Okay, so that kind of concludes the general fund. Wanted to ask if there's any questions, you know, with anything in general fund before I move into the water wastewater fund.
Just on, I don't know when's going to be the right time to say this, but I'm still kind of reeling from Leary Lane last night.
Understand.
And so if you haven't already, can you put the pencil to the paper again or see if there's some other alternatives that can get a sidewalk there without,
Absolutely.
I don't want to call it,
Ken has
without
already-
going overboard.
Yeah, Ken has already started working on that, so I think we can come back to you with something that's maybe a little bit more acceptable.
Thank you.
Sure, sure. Okay, so water wastewater fund, 95 full-time employees, and there's just a myriad of things these guys do. 380 miles of water pipe, 350 miles of sewer, 24,000 water meters, a surface water plant, and you just keep, the list goes on and on. So that's a lot of stuff for the field guys and the admin staff to keep up with. 2019 budget is proposed to be $26.8 million, which is about $2.1 million less than the previous year. I want to point out that last night Chief Drake mentioned that you know, he's got these red numbers and these numbers in negative, and we have those too, but ours are typically 6 or 7 digits, not just 4 or 5. I don't think he's here, but
No, he's
Tracy, that's not really aimed at you, Tracy. It's not your fault. So about 1.6 million in one-time expenditures. I'll get into those one-time expenses in a little bit. Have this little chart here, kind of shows you where the money is spent. You can see that our biggest area of expenditure is the debt service, 35%. After that, it's the water distribution. They all just kind of fall in place. One-time expenses, there's a whole bunch here. One of the big ones is transfer to health fund, $333,334. I don't know why I have to spend $1 more than Daryl does, but we'll take that. We'll take that hickey. That's fine. The next few items want to bring your attention to, those are all related to the surface water treatment plant and all of the other facilities that are make up that plant, the river pump station, the raw pump station. Those facilities were built in 2000, went online 2001, and they're showing their age. A lot of these things need to be rehabbed or replaced. Feed system, some of the breakers, the pumps at these stations, they've been rehabbed several times. We're going to try to keep rehabbing the ones we can, but some of them may just have to be replaced. So those expenditures are coming, and we have them in here. Another large one is the third one down, replace the vac truck, jet truck, $364,000. That is a large piece of equipment that's used every day, and the type of work it does is very, very hard and very, very dirty. And so it takes a beating. So we desperately need to replace this truck. Overhaul one of the water wells, number 26, for $100,000. This well is, one of our 10 wells that we use for emergency, and it's showing some signs of not pumping as strong as it should. So we want to get in and figure out what's going on with that one and get it rehabbed. And then, of course, we have our typical emergency water line replacement and some additional utility replacement. That says North Heights Phase 4. That is wrong. It's North Heights Phase 6. I didn't catch that until I was going over my presentation today, so I apologize. CIP, there you'll see North Heights Utilities Phase 6, $1.2 million. That's going to be half funded by the water, half funded by wastewater. And then again, that emergency pipe replacement, water $200,000 and wastewater $300,000.
That whole project is going so well. I was
It
over
is
there the
going
other day.
great. And, Phase 7 is the last one, so it's moving along
Yeah. It
rapidly.
looks really good, the finished product, the
Yeah, they're-
streets and the curbs. Yeah.
They've done a great job, yes, sir. And so, moving into some budget development criteria, we're predicting revenues of $25.9 million. This does not include the rate increase that Sharmell mentioned earlier. We are recommending that a rate increase of for 2019, as described in the rate study that New Gen Strategies presented to you on May 1st. We're recommending the 4-tier block rate structure for both water and wastewater, which is projected to add about $860,000 in revenue for 2019, assuming that we adopt it October 1. If y'all want, I can move into some slides that deal with that. I've kind of pirated some slides out of New Gen's, but before we do that, let's just finish this slide. Recurring revenues are going to be greater than recurring expenses. We will be meeting our 3-month reserve requirement policy, and all bond debt coverage requirements are satisfied. James, can you pull up that other? Okay, so I have some slides here, and I'm not real sure which one that y'all want to see. Ms. Scott, I believe you had asked to see some of this. So do you
This
want to
is-
look at the tiers
Well,
specifically?
yeah, this is a repeat of what the presentation we had before, but I didn't bring it with me, and I
Okay.
didn't think to look at it, and I thought it would be helpful if we could.
Do you have the rates? There you go.
So
The
here's
rates that we're
our
doing.
current rates for water. We've been using these rates since I think last rate change was in 2014, I believe. We haven't brought anything back to you since then. What we're recommending is moving to a 4-tier structure and making the adjustments that you see here is in those adjustments will actually happen. I'm sorry. The adjustments won't happen. It's just basically going from a 7-tier to a 4-tier and taking advantage of the increase in the water rate, increase in the water consumption that you'd see by those rates.
This results in that revenue increase you
yes, sir.
showed of 800, okay.
Yes, sir. So here's the current wastewater rates. In our current tier structure, 7 different tiers. Again, we're recommending going to a 4-tier wastewater rate. And what I believe the next slide that I left on here is kind of the impact of what you'd see on this 4-block structure or 4-tiered to an average water user, an average home. So what you'd see is their water bill in 2018, as it stands now, is $73.68. 2019, you see an increase. That stays the same until 2022 when you see an additional increase.
Which kinds of projects were included in this analysis? Like one of the things we've been wanting to do, don't have the spare money, is interconnectivity of the off-channel storage,
If I can find that.
OCRs.
I have that slide in here. Was it the first one? Yes. So those 6 items there are the ones that are covered in this.
Okay, but
this plan.
the interconnectivity one was
It was not.
what,
That's
several million?
Yeah, it was several million. That was a CIP project.
Okay.
So it's a valve replacement program, some manhole rehabilitation program, concrete lining, in a vehicle replacement, some river pumps, water well rehabs, clarifier drives at the regional plant. Those are pretty old and getting in real bad shape. And then some annual maintenance and lease costs for generators. And then one of the biggest items is increasing the reoccurring pipe replacement program funding from 1.3 to 1.728 over the next 4 years. Trying to really attack some of those concrete pipes and get those replaced.
But no improvements to the system itself, such as OCR.
Not to the OCR, to the distribution and collection system, yes, but not to the OCRs.
So some of it will be tied to debt. I mean, or is it all M&O, that additional revenue? What do you anticipate? Okay, so having said the answer to that question, you know, I look at that pie chart at 35% to debt service. And Gilbert may have to answer this. Historically, has that been consistent in your time, the 35%?
35%, been maybe higher to about 37, 38%. The reason why it went down, because we did those refinances over the years.
Okay.
But the only reason it went from, it used to be lower, but the increase mainly due because we did the sewer water treatment plant.
Yeah.
But keep council remember another 2023 that debt would be starting to go away technically over the next 3 years after the 2023. So that's why I'm not too concerned for the next
But
5 years.
the range for that figure,
It's been around
has been-
35 for the past 3-4 years. Yes, sir.
okay. Prior to that, do you recall what it
Prior-
was?
well, before we-
90s,
No.
in the
Oh,
90s
90s,
maybe, or
less,
2010?
it'd be a little less than 35%,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Mhm. Okay. And I mean, I'm asking, I realize, in order to optimize our funds, we have to borrow. You just can't, there's a balance to it all. But you know, that does kind of stand out.
One thing I want to add is that, I don't know if council remember, but in 2009 is when we really got aggressive with our CIP. And we started issuing debt at that
Yeah,
time
yeah.
on the GO revenue side too as well. So from 2009, it's been increasing slightly.
And relative to revenue, though, the increase is not that great. Our revenues have gone up, I understand. Okay. There is no thought or plan to any of that additional revenue to keep that. There's no reason to be concerned about lowering that 35%, I would imagine. We meet all the bonding requirements, et
correct.
cetera, so okay.
We have a
And
plan.
most of this is M&O stuff, though, that we're,
All this
Yes.
up there is related to strictly, basically increasing our maintenance programs.
In the near term, I know maybe
Yeah.
5 years from now, it's a whole different picture,
Sure.
but, okay.
just trying to
This
keep
will
up.
help cover some of the deferred maintenance that we
Yeah,
have
it
been
is.
deferring to balance the budget in the past.
try to keep
If we
up.
didn't need to maintain it, we don't need to maintain it.
You and I have had that conversation 100 times, I know, Mr. Halifax.
We'll pay you now or pay me later.
So, as I mentioned before, we're kind of hoping to have some discussion on whether you're interested in the rate increase or not. You know, it'd be nice to have that tonight, so when we present the budget back in August, we know, but if we need to talk about that, the next meeting, we
I'm
can
a
again
yes.
too. So,
I'm a yes.
How many years ago, how long has it been since we've increased them?
I think the last time was 2014.
14, okay. So we're looking for a consensus?
We'd
Jeffs,
like, yes,
What do
yes,
y'all
sir.
think?
so.
Go to the 4-tier system? Yeah,
And if we do that, it's gonna stay the same for 4 years, you said?
Well, let's go back to that. I don't think it will stay
Well,
the same for
there's
4
a-
years.
2 or 3,
Okay. Let me find that.
that one.
Because that last year out, the sewer goes up, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's
2022.
Yeah, there's a component in there where the water goes up in 19, and then in 2022, the sewer goes up.
Oh, yeah, I guess it was a couple more that you showed the impact.
Yeah, there's an impact one that shows it a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's the 4.
There you go.
So you'll see the water jumps, the impact, this is the impact, jumps in 2019 for the water, stays the same in 2020, 2021, and 2022 for the water, but then for the wastewater side, it changes in 2022.
One thing I wish to add to the conversation is that keep in mind, each year has to be reviewed and looked at. I mean, this is 5 years out, so this is our plan of action, so there's a disclaimer there.
It could, but not necessarily.
That's our plan.
Okay.
Well, and I know you were talking about the debt, but, you know, I keep pointing to 2021 and 2022 being when we have some capacity and being able to get back out there and fix Tanglewood. And I keep hearing that that's, you know, a lot of it comes from the water and wastewater. So, you know, I'm looking at those same dates here with the slight increases.
Well, now that will come from the debt service side.
It will, but it all comes out of the,
There would be no, if it plans out the way we have our structure, the debt, there won't be an increase for the debt side.
right, but
Okay.
it's the same budget that, because you're talking about
It'd be
debt
the same
service within
budget.
this budget.
Basically, go back to that 35%, you keep it
It'll stay,
level.
it'll stay flat, basically.
Exactly.
We're
Keep
keeping it the
leveraging,
same.
we'll
Yeah,
just keep on leveraging that money, I
that-
understand,
yeah,
you
yes,
bet.
Yeah, but you're correct, so.
Yeah. And so, you guys okay with the
I'm
four
good
tier?
with the 4-tier. I know that there was a 7-tier as well, but I'm good with the 4-tier. Didn't they propose a 7-tier as well?
They did pursue,
The 4 is, I'm good with.
Our recommendation is the 4-tier.
yes, ma'am.
For both the water and the water, wastewater?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And
that's
they would
fine.
go into effect October 1.
Okay. That's
You can
fine.
plan on that money and plan on that in your budget.
We can add these preventative maintenance projects into the budget for 19 now,
Absolutely.
so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very
Can I
much.
ask about Magruder?
Oh, yes, sir, I think he's getting to that.
Okay.
We know you want to talk about Magruder.
So the next item that I have is, well, if it can, there you go. Next item I have is not really a budget-related item, but Councilman Balknight asked that we come back with some options on, or what we think would be a good solution for Magruder Drive. Ken and I went out there and drove it, took a close look at it, and while there are some areas that have some definite failures, the base in that area in general is in good shape. So we think what we can do is come in and do a reclaim seal on this area, which includes all the way from Country Club down to Lingo to the railroad tracks. We can do that for $238,000. Right now, that's got a street rating of 80. I think you could probably take Magruder and separate it out, and it'd have less than the 80.
Yeah.
And Lingo Lane probably has a little bit higher, but
Yeah.
you know, if council wishes, we could just do the Magruder section and do, you know, maybe save $70,000 or $80,000. I'm not sure. We'd have to run the math on it, but
What was saved by not being able to chip seal Spring Creek?
I don't know
And
that we
wasn't
have
Magruder part of the,
about
supposed to-
80,000, about 80,000.
Magruder was supposed to be chip sealed too?
No, Magruder was not supposed to
No,
be.
it wasn't part of
It
that.
wasn't on the plan.
Now, a couple of years ago, we talked, it was part of a program to go all the way to down Vine, and we, you know, with all that was going on with Texas Concrete and tearing up the road, we backed off of that project, so.
So really, you're looking for 238,000 minus 80,000.
Well,
that's-
let me
he's not
just,
doing
let me just
Lingo
throw
Lane.
out.
He's throwing that
No,
out.
no, not
That-
doing Spring Creek,
Well,
because that was part of the chip seal program for that neighborhood.
keep in mind that Spring Creek, while we didn't do it, something still needs to be done to it. It's probably, in my opinion,
It's-
it's in worse shape than Magruder because the base is gone.
It's probably a rebuild.
It is a rebuild. I think it's a rebuild. So
That's
it's
gonna be
just
a
a
bigger
council
number.
decision at this point.
Yeah, so what you're trying to do is convince 3 other council members that you would like for us to find this money somewhere.
I'd
get
like to
this done in
find that.
19.
I'd like to find it if we
Okay.
can. It'd be, well, we saved 80 for not doing Spring Creek, so we're looking for $158,000 left over in other savings from other projects.
Would you be willing to, can I make a deal? Can I make a deal? And, because we talked about this,
Let me
if possible, if possible, you know, if council wishes, the majority council wishes for us to consider this, giving us a few months, get into 19 and see where we do have some savings, and then keep that on that radar to bring it back.
Okay.
Something we talked about, we do need to try to get Spring Creek done, and I know
it carries
Donald,
more traffic.
Donald is trying to figure out a way to also achieve that too. So looking for some, where we have some savings, where bids have come in under, so.
One other project I'd like to mention, if we find additional savings, there's about a 3-block area on Airline as it crosses the west outfall between Navarro and Laurent. and it's been bad a long time,
Oh,
needs to be
yes.
fixed.
Yeah.
It's just a reclaim and overlay would do it,
We-
because it's only a few blocks long.
No, that's a base failure. Isn't it real deep bump?
Yeah,
Donald-
what
It's
it was, the
smooth, but it-
washout at the
yeah.
west
We have a
outfall when they
plan
were
for
doing
that.
a
They've looked
line.
at that.
We
and-
have a plan for that. When the last phase of the downtown project ends, we will be bringing in a milling company to mill part of Moody. And at that time, if it all works out and the
Then you have the
timing's
hot
right,
mix there to do it.
we're gonna try to try to
Okay.
add that in if we can get it done for the money.
It does definitely need doing.
I
It
pulled a
does.
trailer across it last week.
Yeah.
Got to slow down.
Then it's not a surprise to anyone here.
That was actually caused by some water breaks, is what caused that.
Ms. Scott? you-
I'd like to go back to Magruder and Lingo, and first of all, say that I would be more in favor of it if we keep Lingo included in it, because to me, that's some of the parts that are really bad. And the last time I drove that, though, I was looking at that big open field and thinking, isn't there any way we can narrow this sharp curve? And
Well, the-
it just, and I don't know whether the reclaim would make any difference, but obviously that curve is a problem. You can tell by the defensive support structures that the folks on that block have put in.
There's always a way to do just about anything you want to do. It's just money is what it comes down to. And you're basically, if you cut across that property, you've got to buy the property, you've got to acquire it somehow. And then you're building a brand new road. You're not just reclaiming and sealing, you're building a new road. So
I'm just throwing that out there because if we have a problem and we do a reclaim, are we throwing good money after bad? But I don't know that that's that major of a street that it justifies it, but it certainly would be a nicer road if we looked at
And I want to
fixing it.
qualify that there's some sections of Magruder that I fully expect we may have to do a point repair on. There's some sections of failures where we will probably have to dig that out and set in new base. But the majority of it we feel is salvageable.
No, I think Magruder could be a wonderful thoroughfare. It's kind of landlocked. But there's not another way to get to Navarro from Mockingbird all the way to the Loop unless you take Spring Creek and cut through.
It'll be hard
Magruder
to
would be great.
be a cut through. A thoroughfare, though, you have a lot when you think thoroughfare, you're thinking, there's some trucks, traffic and things like that, and those trucks just will not be able to get over that.
Well, I
railroad
think it would
track.
have to be a total rebuild of that road.
Yeah,
To make
absolutely.
it
Yes,
look like
sir.
Sam Houston continued
Yes,
all the
sir.
way to 87.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
But that's a big project.
And you'd have to deal with the Wagner Way part of it at that point, which really needs to be thick concrete if we rebuild it, I would guess.
So Mr. Broughton,
Keep it on the burner, it'll be
You'll
the
let-
back burner.
well, no, it'll be on the burner, but I think too, just so council knows, Spring Creek is a priority, and then we're trying to find savings and
Okay.
money to get Spring Creek done, and then Magruder is kind of what we were thinking internally, if that's okay.
Okay.
What type of project is Spring Creek?
I think that's gonna be a rebuild, isn't it?
It'll be a rebuild, and we'll have to do some drainage work, I think. Ken, is that fair to say, drainage work? I really think that the poor drainage there is what's caused that base to fail. And so we need to do some drainage work. It's going to be a fairly expensive project, so while I think it's important, it may be easier to find the money for Magruder than it will be for that project.
And just to remind everybody, when we did the seal coat and Country Club, as we do the testing of the base, that's when we discovered that Spring Creek was not a candidate for that because the base was corrupted.
Is that through Spring Creek's a pretty long road. Is it all of Spring
Yeah,
Creek? or
we
is it
did several
possible that-
potholes, and basically from Country Club all the way down to Maine, it was bad.
I just wondered if we could, do the
Yeah, it's a pretty,
overlay in some places and
it's a
rebuild.
steeper hill going down that than you realize until you try to walk or run back up it. It's
Which hill?
Spring Creek, going down to the track.
Yeah. Yeah. How many more months of sales tax reports do we have outstanding this year? 3? Maybe we'll get a surprise. That'll help,
Go shop,
Yeah.
local.
That's all I have.
That's it.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions about anything else in here? I know everybody's itching to get out of here, I can tell, but, and then we can certainly talk about this, any of these items, probably in most all of our meetings between now and budget time, so.
And if you don't mind, one thing I forgot, your notebook, you've got the budget calendar on that left side. So we've got the 4 additional dates that are, special dates besides what we meet in August and September. So
Yeah.
we'll bring back the budget that first meeting in August.
Okay, and just again, I want to thank the staff and everybody,
Okay.
really good presentations, that they seem to get better every year, in my opinion, so thank you. No further business, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
So our next meeting will be.